Hi everyone, it's Friday afternoon, about time to go home. I'm so glad. The bad thing about going on vacation for a week is having to come back from vacation. You get spoiled real quick being off work. But anyway, I just wanted to take a minute because it's time to go home in a few minutes, so you're lucky. And just say a couple of more things that, like I've been talking about this week, the last couple of weeks, on the J6 issues and politics. I just finished reading Eric Metaxas' book, Letter to the American Church. It's excellent. It's not a long book. I really highly recommend anything he writes, but that's his newest one, and so I recommend it. And it's I know I probably will make some people mad when I say this stuff, and that's okay. But I'm entitled to my opinion. So he just talks about the importance of the church, Christians being involved in all aspects of life, not just politics, all aspects of life. And a lot of things that we've labeled as politics aren't necessarily. It's about caring for humans and human rights and just the welfare of people. And so I've struggled the last year or so, especially since I started getting a little more involved with politics, because I feel like people look at me like there's something wrong with me as a Christian, or that I'm not focusing enough on Jesus and evangelism because I'm spending all my time focusing on politics. And that's not true. And the thing is, the reason that I do care about politics is because I do care about people. And those of you who know me know that. I love people, and I love some of the most unlovable people. So that's why I care about, some would say, politics. I hate what's happening to these men and women who are being held because of the January 6th stuff. And first of all, one thing I'm going to say about that is, and I've been wanting to say this, if that was an insurrection, where were all the guns? Now, there have been a couple of people arrested on gun charges, and there have been a few that have been arrested because they had weapons back in their vehicles in another city or state or whatever, but they didn't have them there at the Capitol. I had an Uber driver one night when I was in D.C., and we were talking about it, and he was talking about how Trump caused that, and I said, no, he didn't really. And so I was telling him some of the things, and I said, I'm from the South, and a lot of those people up there were from the South. And let me tell you, if they were going up there for an insurrection, they would have been locked and loaded. These people down here don't play. And he was like, well, you got a point there. And it's true. If this were so serious, I mean, who ever heard of an insurrection with flagpoles and fire extinguishers and, mace, pepper spray, that kind of stuff? No, it didn't happen. Again, I'm not saying that everybody behaved well that day. They didn't. But the charges have been blown way out of proportion. And these men that are being held in the D.C. jail, mostly men, and some of the others, are being mistreated so bad. Just this week, one of the men, who is a retired Green Beret, Army Ranger, Green Beret, he was in the Army for 22 years, retired, and worked for the CIA for 10 years. And he spoke up in the jail when some people were coming through to inspect it, for the jail to get an accreditation. And so he spoke up and told them how horrible things were, and that they had been using the inmates to try to whip it in shape the last week or whatever. Well, 2 days later, 2 or 3 days later, the guards came in under the orders of the deputy director of the jail, and took him out and put him in the hole, solitary confinement. And he wrote a letter. He managed to get a letter out, and he talked about how horrible that cell is. There's human feces all over the walls, all over the floors, There's black flies, sewer flies, he said, covering the ceiling and the walls. There's mold everywhere. The guards and some of the inmates rifled through his stuff, took half of his food when he got there, half of his clothes. And nobody's doing anything about this. This is a man who served our country for 30 years. His judge, who's going to be presiding over his case, told him that he's the worst thing that ever happened to America. How's he supposed to get a fair trial? You know, I mean, the things that are happening are just absurd. And he's not the only one that's had this happen to him. Others have. And so I think it's time for us to stand up and say, no, we're not going to do this. When people screamed and yelled because terrorists were being mistreated over in an Afghanistan prison, and everybody threw a fit, and then we've got our own American people being tortured on our soil, and we're not saying anything. And again, so many of these people are veterans. They have fought for our rights to protest, our rights to the First Amendment, to the Second Amendment, all of them. They've fought for us. And for them to be treated this way is just a travesty. I don't understand our Congress people who know about this and don't say anything. There is no amount of votes in this world that is worth sitting back and letting these people be treated that way. And so again, back to the thing of the church and Christians being involved in politics. Okay, I don't care what party you are, but you need to be standing up and screaming, no, this is not right. This is, you don't have to agree with what they did, but what is happening to them is not right. They are being denied every constitutional right and a whole lot of their human rights. And it's time for us to stand up and do something. So my question to you is, do you want to keep denying it because you really don't believe it? Or because maybe if you admit it, then you have a responsibility to do something about it? So think about that. I am going to try to do everything I can to get the word out. I'm going to be calling and emailing Congress people, media people, bugging them to death to see what we can do to correct this situation. So just think about those things. It's time for us to stand up and demand our rights and the rights of the rest of America. So take care. Have a good weekend.